Yo guys, what's going on? Welcome back. It is episode number 5 of the Newcastle United career mode. Coming into today's episode on the back of our win over Wolves by 3-0 at Molineux. The January transfer window has now opened, but I'm not going to do anything in this window. We obviously signed 3 new players in the summer. Sandro Tonali, of course, he signed in real life, so I'll do it realistically. Kieran Tierney coming in from Arsenal. Like I said, that deal might go through this summer. I don't know if it will now or not. It's kind of 50-50 really, but yeah, we've signed Tierney at left back as well. And of course, Freddie Woodman came in as a new backup goalkeeper to meet the homegrown rulings. Actually, though, someone pointed this out. I don't know if he actually meets the homegrown rulings or not, because most of his academy days, most of his youth academy days were actually spent with Crystal Palace. And when he came to Newcastle, I think he was 15, 16 years old. I think he only spent a year there and then was subsequently loaned out. So I'm not actually sure if he does meet the homegrown rulings or not. I know 2 goalkeepers do. That's Tim Krul and Fraser Forster. So maybe if we don't count Freddie Woodman from now on, I might have to sign one of those 2 veteran keepers to meet that homegrown ruling. It's not, the thing is, it's not important. Like, obviously, it's not important. It's not the sort of thing which, you know, it's enforced in the game. Like, you know, you can have a team of 25-man squad, 30-man squad, whatever, and they can all be foreign nationals and not registered with the club's academy from the ages which they needed to be in order to meet those European squad registration rules. It's not important, but I've said before, like if I am going to do these saves as realistically as possible, then we need to take that into effect as well. Do you know what I mean? Like we need to take it into effect as well, and that's why you might see, for example, remember at the start of the save when we signed Kieran Tierney, you might have seen he was willing to take a wage cut. But I didn't give him a wage cut, I gave him a wage increase. Why is that? Because it's realistic. You know, Kieran Tierney's not going to take a wage cut to go and play for Newcastle. Let's be honest here. He's going to want a wage increase. So it's realistic to do that. I don't have to. I don't have to at all. I mean, how many times are you doing a career mode yourself where, you know, you can... you can have a player, on 600 quid a week, an academy player, and even when he gets into the first team, he's like mid-80s, he's only asking for like £2,000 a week. You don't have to give him a realistic £100,000 a week contract if you don't want to, but if we are doing this for realism, then obviously it is the right thing to do. So I know you might sit there and watch me sign certain players you might think are kind of mediocre, to be fair, and it's the reason why, as you would have seen in the last episode, we extended the contract of Paul Dummett. I mean, you're probably sitting there thinking, Paul Dummett? I mean, what? Why? Well, it's the reason why he's extended his contract in real life. Yes, Eddie Howe and the Newcastle powers that be extended Paul Dummett's contract, I think, on Sunday, and the reason why that's happened is very simple. He's a squad player at Newcastle, but he's also an academy player that meets that registration rule. I can guarantee you, if Paul Dummett wasn't a Newcastle squad player that had that registration rule exemption, I guarantee he wouldn't get a new contract. Why would he? Well, how many games he played last year for Newcastle? 2 in the League Cup? You know, Paul Dummett is not going to get in the Newcastle first team now, but he is going to get in the squad and register for the Champions League squad, you know, to make sure they hit those registration rules. You don't have to have those 4. You know, you don't have to have those 4. If you don't have 4, you don't, forego your participation in the Champions League. It just means you leave a squad slot vacant, basically. So, let's say, for example, you've got 0 players that are homegrown and trained by your club between the ages of 15 and 21. I think that's the European registration rule. Let's say you've got 0 in your team, for example. Let's say you've got 0. It just means you can only register 21 players for the Champions League squad. So it means that, you know, you might have to miss certain players out because you don't have enough to meet that criteria. So it's not essential, but it is useful, let's just say that, to have as many players possible in that squad going into a Champions League or Europa League or Conference League campaign. But that's why Paul Dummett, to me, gets that contract extension, because we have basically no one else here. Obviously, Elliot Anderson as well, though I think at the moment he'd be too young for the registration rule, I think, so he'll be exempt, I think. And while we brought Freddie Woodman back as well. But yeah, it's not something which is mandatory, but it is something I like to do. I feel as though, like, realism in career mode, and I guess I want to talk about it today, like, realism in career mode, like, I get comments every now and then, I get messages every now and then, and people will say, oh, that wasn't very realistic, you shouldn't have done that, I don't think that player going to that club would be realistic, I don't think this player signing for you at this point in his career would be realistic. I can't always get it right, like, genuinely, I can't always get it right, but I do try, like, genuinely, I do try, and it can get frustrating sometimes when sometimes I'll sign a player or I'll give an extension to a player like Dummett getting a contract there, and some people might think, well, there's no point in that, that's just stupid, you know, but it's about the realism, and so if realism is something that people prefer, I need to kind of focus on it in every single area. You know, that includes squad registration rules. That includes, contract situations. You know, increasing players' wages instead of agreeing to a pay cut or in the prime of their career. If you want to do a realistic career mode, I mean, I've said this before, like, you play the game however you want to play it. If you want to play it for realism, play it for realism. If you don't want to play it for realism, don't play it for realism. It's your game. You play the game however you want to play it. No one should be gatekept. It's your game. You play it however you want to play. But I get asked to do more realistic career modes. If that's the case, then I'm going to try and focus on realism in every single aspect. And there's been times where I remember, like, signing players who are, you know, kind of average or mediocre best. There's not really much of a need to. How many times have you seen me sign a third choice goalkeeper out of free agents for practically no reason whatsoever? You know, my Leeds career, which had just finished, I signed George Long as a free agent goalkeeper, former Millwall goalkeeper, of course, Sheffield United goalkeeper. He's in his low 70s. He's in his late 20s, early 30s. He's not going to play. Like, I had Dean Henderson and Peter Galaxy as my 1-2 goalkeepers. He wasn't going to play. So you might sit there and think, well, goalkeepers don't get injured. Goalkeepers, you know, aren't going to get suspended. You don't need free. What was the point in that? It's just a waste of wages and a waste of a signing bonus because it's realistic, you know? It felt realistic to me. So, yeah, I know sometimes I might frustrate people when I do certain things and you think, what is the point in that, Doxy boy? Are you serious? But again, I want to point out, it's mainly for the realism. There's no point in having Paul Dummett in this squad. He's going to play like 3 games a season for me, you know? But he is an academy player and one of the rare players we have here that is registered as a homegrown, trained at the club player. So realism in career mode, it's almost impossible to attain and definitely maintain as well. After 2 seasons, basically the save has already got ridiculously unrealistic, but I will always try. Like, I genuinely will always try my absolute best. This career mode is no exception. And any career mode I do, when I talk about realism, there are some career modes I do where realism won't be important to me at all. And I'll specify that at the start of the save. But in saves like this it is. And therefore I'll do my absolute best. Anyway, heading into this game on the back of the win against Lincoln, we came through the FA Cup 3rd and 4th rounds against Bristol Rovers, the Gas, and then Lincoln City, the Imps, the Football League sides, both away from home. We also drew 2-2 with Bournemouth. How I didn't win that game, I've got no idea, man. Curtis Jones got a red card in the first half. I fell behind through Kiefer Moore as well. How I didn't win that game, I don't know, but in this following league game here, needing to bounce back, Nottingham Forest at St James's Park. Well, we left it late, but we would indeed get the win in the end. Yep, 7.5 minutes to go, tied at 1-1. Bruno Guimaraes, man, he's been so big for me, man. His goal-to-game ratio is phenomenal, 8 in 23. He's averaging over 1 in every 3. For a centre mid, that is absolutely class, man. Like, Bruno Guimaraes has been so good for me this season. I'll tell you what as well, Sandro Tonali, whilst he hasn't got a goal for me yet, he's really given Guimaraes and Joel Linton the freedom to go forward. As an anchor man in this team, Sandro Tonali has been brilliant, man. He's just sat back as our DLP, just sitting above the back 4 and just spreading balls forward. Occasionally I'll go for goal with range, from range with him, hit the post earlier against Bournemouth with him, but he wasn't brought to be a goal scorer by Eddie Howe, and I didn't bring him in to be a goal scorer either. I brought him to allow Joel Linton and Guimaraes to go through and go forward, and they certainly have had more freedom with the Italian coming in. So on the back of the window against Forest, as you will see, we're currently 8 points clear of Spurs in 5th, but we're also 6 points behind the league leaders as well. So perspective at the moment is the key right now. Yes, we've fallen away a little bit after a disappointing slip up there against Bournemouth and starting to feel the pressure a little bit, but we are still clear of 5th place, and that to me is the key. I said this year, you know, with Newcastle, we don't need to be a title winner. You know, it would be absolutely amazing if we could pull off the impossible and win the Premier League, but it's not mandatory. The most important thing is we stay in Europe, and when we stay in the top 4, even better. As things stand, we're doing the latter, and that is what's most important for me. If we fall out of the title race, so be it. If we fall off the top 4, that'll be disappointing. Even so, following game on the back of deadline day, we did absolutely nothing. We took on Burnley, Vincent Kompany's Burnley. My goodness, this goal, mate. Maatsen, he's a great young left back. Like, Coventry City fans, they'll tell you this. He's a really good young left back. There's no doubt about that. But that goal was just, my goodness. You know, sometimes you just feel like you get a helping hand from the AI. That is exactly what happened there. Yeah, the former Chelsea academy grad, Charlton, Coventry, and Burnley loanee there got his feet molded up like Jimmy Traore all those years ago. Ball hits the post, and it drops into the back of the net. Burnley would find their level up, but right after the restart, we got ourselves back in front. Alexander Isak heading in from close range from the corner from trips there, and Isak gives us the lead back once again. So 2-1 up here against Burnley. And like I said, this season we slipped up in games against Spurs, losing at home, losing away to Man City, losing away at Anfield. Those games, I don't mind if we lose or drop points. These are the games I do. These are the games we must win. Burnley down the bottom of the table, newly promoted side at home. Got to win these games. And thankfully, Anthony Gordon gets a goal later on to give us the dagger. Yep, 3-1 the final score, and that would do it. That Bournemouth game right there, those are the games frustrate me. I don't care if we lose to Man City at home. I don't care if we lose away at Liverpool. But I do care if we slip up away against Bournemouth, for example. We need to win those games if we are to stay in the top 4. Speaking of the Champions League, following game, the last 16 tie, who do we get? Real Madrid. How typical is that? We top our group and our reward is Real Madrid in the last 16. Excellent. Really looking forward to this. Bring it on. Can't wait. Real Madrid, Carlo Ancelotti's side. I knew for a fact this was going to be a tough one. To be fair though, in this game, I was doing alright. Like, I was withstanding Real Madrid for most of the game. I was doing really, really well. But in the latter stages of the game, that was when the quality shone through in the end. Real Madrid got one great chance later on and they took it. And the guy that got the goal, Harry Kane, heavily linked to Bayern Munich. Is he going to leave Spurs? Is it going to happen? Well, if he does leave, the likely destination is Bayern Munich. In the save, he's moved on to Real Madrid and he popped up with the game winner. I've given my opinions on Kane before, and doing a Newcastle United career mode, I guess it's fitting with the legendary Alan Shearer, the top goal scorer in Premier League history. Everyone talks about what does Kane value more. Being that record holder, which as things stand, if he was to stay at Spurs, the likelihood is he would eventually break Shearer's record. If he was to leave, he'd have more chance of getting silverware at a club like Bayern or Real or PSG. To me, I've said this before, every player is different, every player has different values, every player sees accolades and individual records differently and holds them with different weights. But to me, football is a team sport, and that is why I would always value honours over records. No doubt about that. There is no medal for a record, if that makes sense. Like, you don't get a trophy for an individual record, if you will. It's in the books. It's in the books that we want to remember for history if you can hold on to it for long enough, but you don't get a winner's medal for that. You don't get an open-top bus parade for that. Football is a team sport. So for me, if I'm Kane, for all the years he's gone with Spurs, he's given them so many great years of service. Without Harry Kane, Spurs fans, even the most diehard of Spurs fans would know they'd be in a lot of trouble, no doubt about that. And they would have been in a lot of trouble as well. Kane's given his all for that club there. I don't think they would hold it against him if he was to leave. If I'm Kane, I'm definitely leaving. That's my opinion. Either on a free in the summer, next summer I should say, or this summer as well. Go get a trophy, Harry Kane, because that's what you remember come the end of your career. But that in today's episode of the Newcastle United Criminal, guys, we end with a 2-2 draw away against Brighton. So no wins in our last 2 games on the back of loss to Real Madrid. Still in the tie though, still in the tie, but with 12 games to go. Still in the top 4 for now, but our chance of being in a proper title race with 12 games to go has taken a bit of a blow. Thanks for watching though, much love to you all, and I'll see you for the next episode of the Newcastle United Career Mode very soon.